Hello, I'd like to clear up some confusion that I may have caused in the previous videos. People are thinking I'm actually tracing these paintings. Tracing's not the right word. What I mean by tracing is I'm not drawing from life, I'm drawing from an image. So the grid technique is pretty self-explanatory, where you put a grid over your image and then you look at the image in small pieces. You also divide your paper into an equal number of sections, and then you just look at one section and draw it out, and then you move on to the next section, draw it out, move to the next one, move to the next one, move to the next one. It's a very easy way to break down a complex image because trying to draw out all this would be quite intimidating on its own, so the grid technique helps me break that down into simpler shapes. The grid technique isn't limited to drawing from a computer screen or a photograph. You can also build something to help you use this from life. I just took a toilet paper roll and cut it in half and then cut a little box in it. And now you can look at something that exists in the real world and look at it in small parts, and this helps you break down an image into simpler forms. It also really helps to build yourself a little value scale on the side, so when you're trying to decide how light or dark something is, you can go between, is it a true black or is it a 90% gray? So a value scale is really helpful. You'll find it's actually more important to get the lightness or darkness right than it is to get the color right. Building one of these is highly recommended. And I mean, it's not expensive. You take a toilet paper tube and a marker and whiteout and a pencil and about 45 seconds and you've got one of these things. So once you've zoomed in on the section of the image that you want to draw, you go down to your paper and draw that section. And you just divide things into smaller areas and draw it one section at a time. And that's pretty much all there is to the grid method. And if what's in this area is too complicated, you just zoom in further until you're able to draw it. You may have noticed that I've started in the top right corner instead of the left. I happen to be left-handed, so if I work from right to left, I'm not dragging my hand and my arm through my work. If you're right-handed, it would make more sense for you to work this way. So there's no, strange reason why I'm working this way. I'm not trying to, draw outside of the box or anything like that. It's just practical. I'm a southpaw. Also, when you're drawing, you don't want to touch the paper with your skin. The oils in your skin can damage the paper and cause it to discolor in a few years. So when you're working, try to not touch the surface. One way I find that helps is take a piece of acid-free paper and, rest it here so that way if your arm does touch the paper, your oils aren't going into the artwork. They're just going into this other piece of paper that you don't necessarily care about. It might look like I'm being lazy with this piece because there's this large white area right here. It's like a quarter of the painting is just left blank. But this was actually the hardest of the bunch because if you look at this area in here, it's far more detailed than any areas in either of the previous videos. Like this one is. I mean, it's fairly complex, but it's not that complex. That's why I haven't been filming myself drawing this one, because when the camera's on it forces me to work faster and less detailed. When I know I don't have a camera on me, I find it's easier to work more slowly and pay more attention to the details. With art, it's very important that you always try something new with every piece that you do. So for the first one in this series was new because I was taking an existing style that I've been working with, but instead of using acrylic on canvas was watercolor on paper. So I was taking the same style and using it in an entirely new medium. The second piece was I was responding a little more to the fact that I was using watercolors. They work differently. The first one I felt like I was fighting it the whole time. The second one I just sort of went with it and let the watercolors do their own thing. This was a much easier painting to paint. This final one was, all my paintings up until this point have been night scenes, signs that are lit up and bright and flashing at night. I've never done a daylight scene before. I wasn't sure how that would work out, so this image was my first where all the source photographs were daylight rather than nighttime. After this, I think the next stage will be to start doing interiors instead of exteriors. When you first start painting, it's likely that all your paintings will be very different, but as you keep working, it's more likely that you'll start refining a smaller and smaller number of things until the changes become so small that you're probably the only person that notices them. I'm sure everyone watching this video thinks these three paintings look exactly the same, whereas I spent a lot of time with them. I see them as being three very different things. But that's probably just because I'm crazy.